Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Respecting the Beer. My name is Gary Arndt. With me, as usual, is the man who is currently working on carving his own lagering tank out of solid wood, Mr. Bobby Fleshman.
Hi, Gary.
And the first time on the show, we are going to talk about the art of selling beer, which is really kind of where the rubber meets the road if you're going to run a brewery. Stephanie Harvey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you've been working with McFleshman's for a while now on the marketing side of things. So why don't you give a quick overview of how that came about and how you guys met and discovered each other?
Sure. So back in the day, I was a fine artist, wanted to follow my dream, doing great. That road took me to doing a lot of social media consultancy work. And I was helping anybody from restaurants to dance academies, kind of all across the map with photography, social media, starting email newsletters, that type of thing.
So your career as an artist took you to not art.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
My parents were thrilled, as you can imagine. But yeah, one of my clients at the time was this new brewery in town, and I loved beer. And so I thought, yeah, I know enough about beer. I could help them sell beer and take pictures and kind of teach them a little bit about their ideal clientele and working with their social media. So I did that for only a few months. And then Bobby Fleshman said, "You're pretty good at this. We could really use you on the road, maybe selling beer. You're already selling beer in our social media, but if you wanted to start visiting bars and restaurants, maybe you could sell more beer for us that way." So I thought, I don't know exactly, but I thought hanging out in bars and restaurants didn't seem like the worst thing to get paid to do. So I said I would give it a try, and I loved it. I knew enough about their brands and the products and where they were going that I was really excited, and I love what they do in the community and what they were striving to do in the community. So it was like really easy to be passionate about it and just want to get the beer out there.
And Bobby, what did you think about Stephanie that you were like, well, you're really good at this?
So Stephanie was passionate about everything we did at the beginning. This is like, what, COVID times? This is around
Before
even
then?
before then?
Yeah.
And everyone was doing everything here. We all wore all the hats back then. But none of us realized that part of this business of having a business is selling the product or marketing the product. And those are
That's
things.
amazing how that works, isn't it?
And so, I mean, it was completely a blind spot. I could say that it was in the business plan, but in reality, it was never in my mind. I thought, like everybody that naively starts a small business without a background in marketing, that it would sell itself. And Stephanie says that it was, I don't know if you use the Pac-Man analogy, but basically how you have to put your efforts a lot more heavily in that pie to your marketing and sales than we were at the time. But she was good. She was good at reading people, and she was good with the graphic design side of things. And all of her skills in marketing and art and her people skills led her to be a good salesperson, even before she was one. She worked a little bit in the tap room, a little bit on our social media, and she sort of had a better view of what we were doing than I did, because I was just thinking about the next beer and just executing on this idealistic vision of what this company could be. She thought, how can we make, I think your slogan was beer flavored beer before it was used by 15 other breweries by now. And it was right. She hit the nail on the head. We ran with that slogan for a while, and there were other ones. She said Stein after Stein. That stuck with me. I think that's a Cyndi Lauper reference somewhere. And then there were other ones. I think
Girls just want to have suds.
God, Gary, on the spot. Just like that. See, you guys come from the same cloth. That we got in I don't know if I had my fancy $2,000 minivan at the time. Maybe I did. And I went on a sales run with her to show her what that was all about, as if I had any idea. And I think I sold 3 6-barrels, which, if anyone doesn't know, that's not a lot of beer. I did it all of 3 6-barrels in an hour, and she was really impressed. This is what I tell myself about how good of a salesperson I was. Actually, she was probably sad about how bad it looked, and so she decided to take the reins eventually. But she was my only part in, no, there was Alex Schultz before that. So Alex Schultz and Stephanie Harvey helped me sell beer before we even knew what we were doing. We sold it around Appleton. We ended up selling it as far as Sheboygan. I think we might have even hit the time. Maybe we touched Madison and Milwaukee at the time. And then north of here, we were in Green Bay and elsewhere. Anyway, there's a different time. We didn't have a script. We were all trying to survive through COVID. And Stephanie was in the right place at the right time with her skill sets. And she helped us get where we are today. She's going to brag about some of her creations in a minute. I'm not going to do that right now.
Let me say the problem that you faced is a problem that so many businesses face. It's not just a brewery thing. I've seen it in podcasting. I've seen it when I run internet companies. I've seen all sorts of people. They have a build it and they will come attitude.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
No.
There are too many businesses. There are too many beers. There are too many things for people to go out of their way to find you. You have to kind of find them and get them interested in your product. And that takes time, effort, and money.
And if our audience is would-be craft brewers, that's a great message for this entire podcast, is that running a business is about marketing and selling the product. And I know Stephanie's loving to hear this play out.
Beer is interesting because some of the most iconic commercials in history are beer commercials. Some of the most iconic ad campaigns, taglines, slogans have been beer related. And one of the reasons I think that is at least for American beer, the average person cannot tell a Budweiser from a Coors from a Miller. That if they were given them side by side in a blind taste test, they could not tell you which one is which because they're all basically the same, which is why they need to rely on marketing. So, that being said, how do you sell McFleshmans?
And maybe we should back up about a few steps here, because Stephanie was with us up until, would you say, was it
3 years ago?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now she's with Stillmank Brewing Company in Green Bay. But Green Bay, damn it, I knew you were going to call me out. So anyone that doesn't know, I am from Oklahoma, and this bothered me, and I let Stephanie know it bothered me, and she has never let it go as to how to say Green Bay or Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Oh, see, here we
Nope.
go. So, pronounce it for the audience correctly that are not from the area.
Green Bay.
There we go.
Green Bay.
For the record. Yes.
I've never even thought that there's a different...
I know, it's me.
Out of towners.
It's out of
people
towners.
From,
yeah,
they'll say Green Bay.
How did we go there? I was going to say, though, she hasn't been here for a while, but I guess in retrospect, you could speak to how does one sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a generic question about beer, and then specifically, what are the attributes that this place has to separate it from other places?
Sure. So I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about so many small businesses don't understand the importance of marketing. They don't know who their ideal clientele is. They also don't really know what makes their business special because they're so close to it. And that's one thing that somebody who is in that field, or even just who is creative, can provide. And one of the things I'd always thought about McFleshman's was that, number one, Bobby was working at NASA. Like, these are very intelligent people. And when you're hanging your hat on making quality beer, that's something to brag about, that you have, kind of the skill set in science and all these things to be able to rely on. It's also just an interesting story that people get into.
Oh, I don't know if you've listened to all our episodes.
I've heard you say it. I was like, hell yeah, Gary.
They have undersold so much of what they do here that to them it's just, well, yeah, we do this. I'm like, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, huge selling points. But again, when people are close to it, it's also sometimes hard to brag about yourself. When I was self-employed doing all my artistry, it feels really kind of shameless and dirty saying like, oh, these are all my accolades.
I have no problem with it.
I've developed the skills. Trust me. I'm like my own biggest fan all the time.
One of us at the table has how many thousands of downloads per week of their podcast?
Per week?
Or month or day.
Hour. I get 50,000 a day, roughly.
But yeah, understanding your ideal clientele is something that smaller businesses often don't really understand. I think that I've dealt with a lot of different places, breweries especially, that just think, well, we're offering this premium beverage. Our ideal client is somebody with money, and it's simply not. People that appreciate craft beer in general aren't always people with a lot of money. They're just people that respect the beer and the craft, or they like the message that the brewery is sending in whatever way. So being able to provide that not only like in commercials, but even just like the names of your beer, the styles of the beer that you're making, or beverages in general, is just like vital to get those ideal clientele, not only to buy you once, but to keep buying you and to keep being interested and wanting to buy without seeming like you're selling them anything.
I'm surprised you say that because beer really isn't a high-end thing. It's not like wine or spirits where you could get a bottle for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, right? There's no such thing as $1,000 bottle of beer. You know, there are higher end beers, I suppose, you serve, but it's like, well, it's because it's barrel aged, right? And it's
You have to work hard to find $1,000.
but it's like, you know,
beer.
$2 more, not
Bobby's
something
furiously
like that.
scratching notes on a piece of paper right now. In 2 years, we'll have $1,000 bottle.
Oh, I've told them they should do this just for marketing purposes.
Just rarity. That's all it comes
Yeah.
down to. Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised that someone would think like, oh, well, our clientele is someone that spends a lot of money, because even when I think of people who are beer connoisseurs, let's say, or enthusiasts, yeah, it's not like wine, right? Where someone is going to try to, you know, visit a vineyard or something, or take a trip to South Australia to go visit wineries and get expensive wine. It's just they're willing to visit multiple craft breweries.
I think beer has done that to itself to some extent. It's sold the stainless steel. That's what breweries are. And wineries are about the vineyard, and they're about the barrels and all of this. And that's a whole different thing, right? I think that's some of beer's doing, because we could have taken them to the hop yards. We could have taken them to the malt plants and the barley fields. But that's another tangent. But it's true. We said we're just stainless steel.
I mean, it's definitely not like considered high end, but it's also not. I'm from Wisconsin, born and raised, as you can tell in my sexy accent, but it's also not a $2 tall boy of, you know, some big macro
No, there
beer
is
either.
a differentiation in the market, but it's not super high end.
Yeah.
If you go to a fancy restaurant, the fanciest 3-star Michelin restaurant, and I don't care what beer you order, you are ordering a beer at a Michelin star restaurant as opposed to wine or something like that.
Yep.
And so it's just not that highbrow of a thing. You're never going to make your money on having margins that are super, super high by, you know, creating super rare bottles of beer.
That's also the strength of beer, though, that it's so available to everybody, in theory. I think that's why it's for every occasion. I think that's why beer works. But yeah, it does make it such that it's not for those most elite occasions, for sure.
So, with that being said,
I'm thinking about the movie Sideways right now, by the way. I feel like
and that's a good example.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, I've been to a lot of very high-end restaurants where they will have a $10,000 bottle of wine
Right.
on their wine list. And it's for hedge fund managers that come in and they're closing a deal or something like that, and they just want to blow a lot of money. And that just doesn't exist with beer.
They've never seen an 8-liter Methuselah bottle of, name your Belgian brewery that makes 12 of such bottles per year. That's a scene. You get a person holding 8 liters of an 8-liter bottle of beer, and they pour it as they walk down the bar into all the available glassware. I haven't either, by the way, but these happen, and these high-end bars do have these bottles available for maybe not quite that price, but several $1,000s for a bottle like that. And it makes for quite an occasion.
So what do you think are the attributes then of this place when competing again, when you're trying to get other places to sell McFleshman's beer? Why would they do that?
So part of the job of sales is just building relationships, but about the overall marketing, it's really kind of, like I said, leaning into appealing to this ideal clientele. For McFleshman's, I thought the science aspect of it and the respecting the beer, kind of everything along those lines was so important. So I was always an advocate of, you know, that should be the styles you make. Like, you should never make a hazy IPA. It's a very sore subject.
Oh, yeah.
McFleshman's. It still pains me. After I left, I saw Bobby made a hazy IPA, and I was so sad. But it's really good. But just
I
kind
struggle with
of
it.
leaning into that, because sometimes at a certain point, beer does have a wide audience, but if you're trying to appeal to everybody, you end up appealing to nobody. So to be able to create these advocates that, you know, kind of love what you do and are so into it, and appreciate proper glassware. They appreciate, how long it takes to make a lager. They're interested in all these crazy beer styles that are, kind of historical and, adhere to Reinheitsgebot and everything else. I think is, really leaning into that ideal clientele who is educated. And I always hate saying beer snob. I like beer geek because beer geek means you're not a jerk about other people drinking different beers. You just are educated and know what you like and appreciate what you like. But that being said, it is also a hard business to run in, the Fox Valley, serving those kind of
Yeah.
styles.
I was about to say that if we were in Chicago, I always say, I've said this a number of times on the podcast, we could pick a lane and say, screw the rest of the field. We're going to make that thing. But in Appleton, you have to make almost everything. I don't want to say for everyone, but you can't ignore the hazy. You have to, not to be literal or explicit about it, but you got to find a balance, right? Because now we're talking hard kombuchas now and THC infused, and it's just, where does this thing end? So yeah, it's a challenge.
Well, that's something that a lot of people, brewery owners, have asked me lately because we're all talking about the shrinking craft beer space due to like NAs, THC. Still, to a certain point, seltzers took up some space in the market a few years ago. Like all these RTD drinks, all those things have made craft beer space shrink. So people ask me like, well, what are you guys doing? What do you think we should do? It's like, yeah, those are the trends. You are going to see more hard teas. You are going to see maybe some more seltzer still. A lot of THC drinks. You're going to see a lot of this. And my advice to any brewery is don't do it unless it's on brand for you. If you've got a younger clientele who's already drinking THC drinks, who's already smoking weed regularly or taking gummies, yeah, you should dial that in and make a THC drink. If not, you probably shouldn't. If you're making, rock beers and Baltic porters and Vienna lagers, and that's kind of like your jam, I don't know that you should be messing with THC. I think you should kind of stay the course and lean into this fact that you are staying traditional as fuck, and that's where you stand, and people who appreciate that are going to appreciate it. People that aren't are going to go to the brewery, maybe down the street. But again, to create those kind of loyal fans and have that ideal clientele for what you do is everything.
She just refreshed beer flavored beer, traditional as fuck. That's our new campaign. She's not even on payroll. I guess I'll have to give her some
Send me the
beers.
check.
Yeah.
Send me the T-shirt. Give me a bumper sticker.
Oh, it would sell so fast.
To be honest, if you were in a larger city like Chicago and you could focus on one thing, you might find a niche for that. And from a business standpoint, just being in a larger city, that you might do well. But I also think that because you produce so many varieties of beer and the menu is always changing, that is kind of become your calling card, right? That this is, and it's that you have so many different types and it's all in-house. That's the other thing I think that blows a lot of people away. I've come in here.
The size of this place especially.
And people were wondering, it's like, well, what are the brewers? Like, no, it's all here. This is all made on site. And that impresses a lot of people that you have the sours, you have the barrel-aged beers, you got lagers and stouts and the nitro and the crazy faucet from Czechia and all that stuff. That it kind of feeds into the whole beer enthusiast thing.
Yeah. As you're saying all of that, I was going to ask Stephanie a question about, do you think that brewers have created this or responded to this, or is it a little A and B?
I think a little bit of both. I think that the breweries, okay, so I'm sure you guys have talked about all the breweries that have already closed, that maybe are going to close. All
What?
this
The
kind
beer
of stuff.
industry is challenging right now?
But I
Where's
think
our news
I think
sound?
the ones that we're going to see succeed or kind of stay the course are those ones who are kind of staying in that zone of, yes, reinventing, yourself to an extent and making new beers, but also relying on your tried and true core beers too. With the economy, with everything else, I think people are sick of wasting $28 on a 4-pack of a hazy IPA with glitter and marshmallows in it. So I think they're going back to that. And I think we did create some of this because everybody got so crazy and so innovative that it was like sort of just like a playground to goof around in.
My Little Pony Hazy IPA.
Dry pony. Yeah, I like it.
We make a beer at Stillmank called Fluffy Unicorn IPA,
Oh, yeah.
and it flies.
Yeah.
Did you like
that?
Every year, it sells out faster and faster. And don't get me wrong, it's great beer, but also it's called Fluffy Unicorn. It's cute as shit. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to buy it.
We've talked a lot on the show about, and you've touched on some of this, the problems in the industry. That on one hand, there still aren't as many breweries today as there were, say, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. That there used to be a lot of breweries,
Now, you're
especially
talking
in
about per capita, right? Yeah.
I mean, well, even, like every city in Wisconsin had kind of its own brewery.
yeah.
So on one hand, the number of breweries has grown a lot, primarily because there were so few breweries in the 1970s that it was the nadir of the brewing industry, but still not as many as there used to be. So what do you think is the future of the industry in terms of where it's going? Are you going to see more consolidation or more growth in terms of the number of individual craft breweries?
I only know how we're doing, and
Yeah.
our business is really good. But my boss is Brad Stillmank has always been really forward thinking. In like years ago, he was thinking about making THC. Whether we'll do the drinks or not, I don't know. But developing a cider company, because that's like a huge thing. People think cider is more natural and healthier than beer for whatever reason. And being able to tap into that market, we didn't want to get into the RTDs or anything like that, but that's sort of our kind of resolution for being able to put out a product that's still on brand for us and hitting some of that market without getting into, margarita, THC, RTD.
Pickle beers.
Skittles Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Skittles Pale
The pickle
Ale.
beer
Ooh,
is
I
like
kinda
the
want
most
that one.
polarizing beer that comes out of this brewery. We'll do like 5 gallons at a time.
That sounds gross.
We just
People would love it,
on a
yeah.
given. You know how it goes. On a
Yeah.
given Friday, it's really loud on social media, and a couple of our people take their clothes off for it. It gets weird around here.
Do you think the popularity of a lot of these, of the seltzers and the hazy IPAs and all the fruity stuff, it almost seems like there's an infantilization of the market where people are drinking like they're children, like they want the fruit drinks and the fluffy marshmallow, like you said, and stuff like that, as opposed to, I don't know, for lack of a better word in comparison, adult beers, which are beer-flavored beers. I mean, is that kind of the direction where things are going?
You're describing the extreme opposite of the wine culture that you were just talking about.
Well, I think that the
Infantilization.
novelty of it is always going to drive customers. That's what we saw in craft beer for a while, right? Like, it was kind of like a novelty thing. So people are like, oh, when am I going to see this again? I'm going to buy this. To the point that, like, any brewery could put out any 16-ounce 4-pack of hazy IPA, pretty much almost call it whatever you want, and it could be made by any brewery, and people would buy it.
Not unless it had like a clown or a ninja or both on another planet. It had to have a label that would sell.
Cursive font label.
Oh, yes. I can't gloss over that. The cursive font comment at some point after me learning that you actually have to do something to sell your product, I gave Stephanie the advice that one of our labels, was it our label? Maybe could handle some cursive font.
I was trying to teach Bobby a little bit about marketing. I said, like, well, if you're going to make this kind of beer, consider what kind of people are going to drink this beer. And he was like, you know what? I think you should use a cursive font on this. That was his big dive into marketing and graphic design.
I really hope that this is coming through on this recording because Stephanie, she responds to that, oh, really? And then she pulled out her pencil and paper to take notes from me, all but. It felt like I was very much patient.
I believe this was during the pandemic. And at some point I said, thank you, Bobby. Where did you get your marketing degree again? And he said, understood. I'm going to leave you alone for now.
I'm going
I
back
said,
to the brewery.
That would probably be best for us.
I can just see a couple of guys at a liquor store. Hey, Hank, what do you want to get? I don't know. This one has a cursive font.
Hey,
Hell yeah.
Even if they don't say
Pull
it,
up the truck.
everybody will buy the oldest German beer with the gold filigree. They'll buy it. It doesn't matter how much dust is on it, how old it is. They'll buy it every time over the
You
freshest
should just have
lager.
a beer called cursive font.
I was thinking that as we were having this conversation, it has to happen at some point.
Breweries try very hard to get bars to serve their product. One of the things they certainly use, you go into a bar and you will see tons of beer signs, neon beer signs. I've seen some very elaborate ones. I've seen some very simple ones, and I've seen them forever, ever since I was a kid. These larger breweries put in a lot in the relationships with bars and restaurants. When you go to a bar or restaurant, what would your selling point be for not even McFleshman's, but just any smaller brewery that's trying to compete with these big players? And what do you have to provide to them beyond the beer to make it a compelling case for them to carry it?
Well, I mean, you've seen me, so obviously I'm like very good looking and have dazzling personality and very humble. So I think that usually helps sell it. But it's definitely hard to compete with the bigger breweries, whether they be national or statewide or these kind of quote unquote craft breweries that are owned by Anheuser-Busch or whoever. But I think being able to offer a more personal touch to your accounts is kind of the best way to do it, whether that be offering them some sort of customized posters or whatever. Again, it's hard at different accounts because you want to kind of meld your ideal clientele and that product that you're selling and how is it going to appeal to those people versus kind of their clientele, and where do you find that common ground in being able to put something out that people just want to buy it. And I think being able to set yourself apart from other breweries in doing that, leaning into your slogan, leaning into that product and what you're doing, or just having fun with it. I have some accounts that are just really fun and good-natured and kind of raunchy sometimes. We had a whole stint for a while. We came out with a beer called Little Blue Pills, and I made a bunch of posters that said coming soon, and it was spelled COMING soon, but we left the posters in certain spots where we expected that people would change the spelling of the coming soon, and it was really stupid, but it was really fun and it worked, and people got very excited for the beer.
Back to what Gary said about the people that drink wine versus the people that drink beer.
You were talking about statewide breweries, and I assume that you're talking about New Glarus. I have been to many restaurants, for example, within, spitting distance of where we're sitting right now, and they'll have a menu for beers that I've seen, and it will say local beers, and it's Spotted Cow. And I'm like, you do know that there's a brewery that you could throw a baseball and hit from where we're standing right now that is far more local than something which is not, anywhere in this community. And I think there's a lot of people that just, I don't know if they don't know or they don't care or what, but it seems to me it's a tough sell.
I think a lot of bars and restaurants assume that if they haven't heard of something, it's not good. Just another reason why you should spend money and time on marketing your product, because it definitely will help. Even if you obviously don't have the money like larger breweries, it will definitely help to be able to get the word out there. But I've talked to all sorts of people in Northeast Wisconsin, and really just like the last year, I've been driving that home more and more. A lot of our branding has, literally says drink local on it. Most all of our beverages in any capacity say Green Bay, Wisconsin on it. When I talk to people one-on-one who are buying for restaurants, bars, anything, I'll say, like, well, we're your neighborhood brewery. And they kind of think about it. And yeah, maybe they're swayed a little bit. But I think what ends up doing it is that when I tell them, well, your neighbor that lives down the block, do you want them to drive to Milwaukee to eat every time they want to go out? Well, no, I'd expect them to come here because they're in our neighborhood.
Right.
It takes them a second, but then they're kind of like, okay, yeah, we'll take whatever beer you're trying to sell us.
Right. And as far as
it is important.
And as far as this is a much bigger conversation, but as far as the locally owned, whatever local means, that upside down bottle of beer that says independently owned or independent craft is very important. And if anyone wants to know where their beer is coming from, and I mean that in a metaphorical sense, I don't mean physical sense, that it's coming from an independently owned small craft brewery, the only way you're going to know that is to look for that insignia. So, because all of these craft breweries, half of them are owned, if you follow the money, by very large breweries. And I tell people that all the time. I don't know if it's the same way in wine and spirits and everything. It probably is. But at least in beer, we have that logo to guide us.
One more thing before we close up. The brewery you're working for now is in Green Bay. Green Bay has a big event coming up. They're hosting the NFL draft.
What?
Which would not be a big deal in pretty much any other city in America, but it's a huge thing here because it's pretty much the biggest event that we can handle. And you guys did a draft day beer. Tell us about that. And market it. Sell it.
Our Green Bay draft is a honey malt lager. All the malt for all of our beers actually at Stillmank come from Breweries. That's always one of our big selling points, is that almost everything we do is local. For the mead we make, we use honey from Kewaunee County. A lot of the apples that we use for some of our ciders are from Door County. Our labels are printed in Green Bay. Pretty much anything that we can do on a local level, even when it's more expensive or a pain in the ass, we do because we really believe in it, and we think our customers do. Our Green Bay draft beer is a honey malt lager. All the malt is from Breeze out of Wisconsin, and it's just like a really nice, easy drinking beer. The artwork on the can is pretty dope. It is made by mural artist Bo Thomas, who does a lot of the murals in Green Bay. It's just super cool, easy drinking beer. It's a lot of fun. It is selling really fast.
Are you doing anything special in terms of promoting it or doing anything for when the draft is taking place?
Like any other business in Green Bay, we're just kind of doing our best. It's really hard to know how people are going to filter in and out of the town. We know we're going to be busy for a lot of reasons. The tasting room itself will be really busy just with people coming in and out because we are family friendly. We're going to have a bunch of food trucks around for that week. And not only do we have beer, but we also have our own cider, glass apple cider, and all these seltzers, mead. We do kind of have something for everybody that we make in-house. But we're also very distribution focused, so I will be probably running around and helping people out the best I can. I've already done a lot of consultancy and just helping out my accounts to kind of educate them on local beers and saying like, hey, if you're not going to carry my beer, you should at least carry this because it's local. It's Green Bay or it's Appleton. But being able to create kind of that perfect lineup of all these local beers is really important to us and to craft beer in Wisconsin in general.
And will this be a limited run or something you'll keep doing after the draft?
I've jokingly said I want to just keep renaming it every couple months based on our mood and what the local thing is because it's such a good beer and people really dig it, and they've been digging it since August when we first released it. But we'll see. I think we're just going to be making it indefinitely and kind of see where the sales kind of go afterwards.
All right. Well, that'll conclude this episode of Respecting the Beer. Producer of Respecting the Beer is David Kelso. Without David Kelso, the show would not go. Make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player so you'll never miss an episode, and feel free to join the Facebook group where you can get updates between the episodes and to support the show over on Patreon. Links to both of these are in the show notes. And until next time, please remember to respect the beer.